Good morning. This is Jason D coming live from Film Fanatic headquarters. It is Wednesday at 10:16, so I hope everyone's doing good. It is a pretty rainy. It's kind of a warm, unusually warm day, but everything's melting. All the snow is melting. It's raining right now, so it's kind of a shitty day. I love the snow. It was really. I went the other day to see a movie over at a buddy's house, or the other night, Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday or Monday night. It was Monday night. Watch We watched this really amazing film called Cure. It's a Japanese film. I've never seen it before. Suspense horror kind of film, really good. But we started watching the movie really early, like 6 o'clock, and so I was the movie was like a little less than 2 hours or so. So, but when I came home, and he lives right in Belfast, it was snowing, and it was a kind of a nice little snowstorm. It was a nice little surprise, and it was really pretty out. Kind of, always put you in a Christmas state of mind. Christmas is coming up pretty close. So, yeah, it was great. It was great. And again, I'm a person when I buy lots of movies. I've been trying to spend. Well, I've been trying to not go to Bull Moose quite as much as I have been in this past year. Been buying lots of movies, and one reason. Well, it's not really a reason. I've been just trying to save a little bit of money on that, but I really love the whole experience, and I never want to kind of do it too much. Well, obviously for financial reasons, but I don't want to like overextend myself that way because I just love the experience. So I want something to look forward to more and more. And of course, what I do all the time is, all the movies that I buy, pretty much all the time. I will see each movie. I will actually watch all the movies I buy. There's some that I still haven't gotten to, but the other thing that I do is I rewatch movies quite a bit. That's that's my thing. I remember talking to somebody a long time ago about, you know, and this was quite a few years ago. I used to do a long time ago. I used to do this part. I used to was part of this kind of this jazz jam that would happen up in Augusta, Maine, which is about an hour away from here. And this piano player, Mickey, I used to play with, he would host. He would, we would do these jazz jams, and we would do it during the week. So I would drive up to Augusta once a week, and it was fun. I mean, I miss doing some of those gigs because I'm a huge fan of jazz, but I don't get a chance to really play. Most of the gigs I play are, I mean, there's jazz in each of the bands and projects that I'm in to a degree, but I never really play straight ahead jazz or jazz based kind of stuff as much. But I work on it. I practice it all the time, and I love that music. But at that time, I was playing at this. I was like part of this band playing at this jazz jam. It was in someone's house, and it was actually a great time to do. I wish I could do something like that again. But anyway, the piano player Mickey Felder was also really into film, and this was like quite a few years ago, and this was right about the time when I started to really buy lots of movies. I started buying. It was before Blu-ray, and of course 4K, and it was during the time when DVDs had hit the market, and DVDs were huge, and they were, it was like a tidal wave as far as new technology at that time, and so I at that time was buying lots of movies, and I remember talking to Mickey about, you know, movies and like collecting movies and movies that we'd seen, and then, as far as movies that you watch, over and over again. And he had was saying how he kind of, I don't know, he kind of treats his movie collection like a museum almost, where he has these films that he's bought over the years, but he doesn't really rewatch them. He kind of he watches a movie or sees a movie that he really loves, and then he would buy it on DVD and then kind of store it away and maybe watch it, maybe not. And I always thought, well, what's the point of that? It's like, you know, if I want to buy an album, or if I buy an album or a, piece of art for that matter, I don't want to just have that experience once. I want to, I think of all of those things as treasures, and it's like inspiring. So it's like I want to go back to that well and have that experience as many times as I can. So I remember we had this kind of weird thing about that because I said, well, no, I'll like, you know, I remember two movies we were talking about in particular, The Godfather and Francis Ford Coppola's, also directed by Coppola, Dracula. And I had said, we were talking about those films, and I said, yeah, you know, those are two of my favorite films, and then Godfather being my favorite. I have seen those movies so many times I can't even count. And he was like surprised. He was like, "Oh," and he said, "Yeah, those movies are incredible. They're masterpieces, but I've only seen them a few times." And I'm like, yeah, it was kind of an awkward thing. But anyway, today's show is on a movie, and I movies that I fall in love with. I might have seen as a maybe when I was a kid. During the times of the glorious, well, not really glorious, VHS days. That's one thing. Without getting too sidetracked, that's one thing I notice so much now. Being that I still buy DVDs, but I try to. My main focus is Blu-rays, but that's one thing I noticed. Like a movie that I saw when I was a kid. This was a movie too. This movie, which I'm going to be talking about today, Burial Ground. This movie is, I know I definitely saw this during that time. This I got exposed to lots of Italian horror films and things like when I was a kid. I remember vividly seeing House by the Cemetery for the first time. It was my first time seeing a an Italian horror film. I saw it as a little kid, and I remember having this. And I had seen some Dario Argento films and some other Italian movies, but I wasn't as, um, you know, well, not that now I've become more familiar with revisiting a lot of these films and then taking a deeper dive with understanding some of these directors and getting into their work, especially the Italian directors. But I never really, it wasn't a thing like there was a lot of Italian movies, a lot of movies I saw that I didn't know like who the director was or didn't put two and two together. But Burial Ground, for instance, is a movie. I believe I did a video on this last year or earlier this year, but it's such an amazing film. But again, seeing all those movies on VHS when I was a kid, you know, and then seeing them now, it's like, holy shit! Like, what a completely different experience. But I watched this. This movie is one of the greatest. I consider this a zombie movie. I mean, it's a little bit of a different thing. Um, it's a the dead coming becoming alive again essentially. They are these dead monks that essentially come back to life and wreak hell, and the gates of hell truly open in this film. This was a movie that was put out by Severin. Um, Came out in 1981. The prime time period for all of these amazing horror exploitation movies. What, my God, what a classic film this is. This is such a nasty, nasty movie. It's definitely one of the most um, low down and dirty zombie films. It was directed by Andrea Blocki, or Andrea Blackie, and it is an experience. It's an Italian film. The transfer of this on Blu-ray is astounding and just gorgeous. Um, it's definitely one of the most low down and dirty and just full on like nasty experience that you'll see. It's super sleazy too. That's one thing I haven't, you don't really see too often in say the zombie exploitation world. I mean, you do see it, but this movie is definitely one of the sleaziest of those kinds of films. I mean, there's a lot of kind of nasty sexual things that happen in this movie. The kills in this movie are just incredible. The atmosphere, the whole location of where this film takes place in this mansion is just amazing. The people who are trying to flee these zombies are they take refuge in this giant mansion, and once the action kicks in, I mean, this movie, like about 10 minutes in, once the action kicks in, it is like kind of unrelenting. Like it's unbelievable. This is a Severin release. This is definitely one of my favorite horror exploitation movies of all time. It's probably when it comes to again the kind of the zombie apocalypse kind of genre. I think this might be like the sleaziest. This might be the sleaziest and just the most raw film I've ever seen in the genre. And it's so entertaining. It's so well shot. I love the monster or the creature, the zombie design is just so awesome. I mean, of course, it's all practical effects. The practical effects are just incredible. And I've said many, many times in the past that if a movie has incredible atmosphere or even just really good, solid atmosphere, I will be into it no matter what. Even if, like I said, even if the movie is not particularly great, if it might have some pretty bad dialogue or some bad writing or some bad editing, what have you. But this movie has, I don't know, I feel like this movie is like a perfect kind of horror, zombie, exploitation movie. I love everything about it. But this movie just oozes so much atmosphere. The music score for this film is so haunting. The kills are just incredible. And this film has some things in it that is generally there are some generally kind of jaw dropping scenes in this movie that are shocking. This movie is not made for everyone. I think this movie would probably disgust and appall certain people, but it's so damn good. I mean, it's just so. I mean, it's a horror film. It's an Italian horror film from '81. I mean, you can't get any better than that. I think it's one of the best, probably in that decade. One of my favorite decades. But it's so entertaining. And again, it's like when I see how like a film like this, again, it's all about the entertainment value. But even that being said, this film has some scenes and certain sequences in it that are really shocking. But I still feel like it's a work of fantasy, and it just takes you out of the mundane because it's such an example of creativity, world building, but then it's again the reason I love these kinds of movies so much and why these movies are my favorite is that it's just so raw and it's so nasty. It's not a lot of these filmmakers never had the luxury of having a budget that was where they had $1 billion at their disposal. They were working. They weren't making a lot of money. They had virtually no budget compared to say studio films. they they had so many restrictions. When you see, if you see, for instance, say the production for the last Martin Scorsese movie, Killers of the Flower Moon, where that movie took quite a few years to make, but the sheer budget that they had, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's over $100 million. And obviously Martin Scorsese is an iconic director, one of the greatest living directors, and it's a Killers of the Flower Moon is an amazing film. I'm super pissed off that we can't get it on Blu-ray or DVD. But anyway, when you see that, and that's a big Hollywood studio production, and you see how they they have the luxury of, say, of as far as putting money in the production, into creating this new world. It's kind of there's an unlimited financial resources for that. And as far as just when it comes down to the actual shoot, it's they can afford, Martin Scorsese can afford to do 1,000 takes of one or two particular scenes that might have you know two lines of dialogue. But with all of these films, it was kind of a race to the finish line, like, because they didn't have the luxury of doing multiple takes of certain scenes. A lot of the times it's one and done. A lot of the times when they're shooting scenes in a lot of these films, they basically, it's one and done. Or there is, maybe lots of improv. They're not even sticking to a script. Sometimes there isn't a script per se. So there's, and they, because they just don't have those kinds of deep pockets or resources. But I think those kinds of qualities make these movies so magical, because it, again, I did a show, I was on a podcast last year being interviewed about this channel and my love for for this genre. And I remember his name was Matt Littlefield, I believe, and he was asking me about, he just kind of asked me kind of a direct question, like, what is it about these, like, low budget, sleazy, kind of trashy movies that, what is it, why do you love these movies so much? And I remember saying, it's like, it's pretty simple for me. I mean, it's a pretty simple way to answer that, but to me, it's like putting on a, a punk rock record or a punk rock album, where it's just raw and nasty and just coming at you, and there's not like nothing. It's just not. There's nothing pristine or clean about it. It's just like a lot of passion. Whether they are fully, whether the that vision is fully articulated or not, it doesn't really matter. It might be really rough around the edges because of, again, it comes back to the budget. They don't have the luxury of spending $1 million in the studio or whatever, and it's recorded in someone's house or whatever. But it's that the passion and just the rawness and the directness. These movies are very direct. Like they just kind of take you out of the mundane instantly, and they're super entertaining. And but it's just that raw power of a lot of these films. And I said that's really it in a nutshell. And I feel like this Burial Ground just exemplifies that. Like that's you know, I when it comes to music, I mean, I love pop music. I love things that are super produced and clean to a degree, and polished to a degree. But overall, I love I love the visceral. I love when art is just raw and kind of dirty. I love when it's rough around the edges. to me, it just gives it more of a human quality because none of us are perfect. None of us are, we all, or some of us at least, try to, better ourselves and try to, like, when it comes in regards to, like, creating art, we want to keep pushing forward, learning a new skill set, and then we have people that we look up to, standing on the shoulders of giants, people that we love. But at the end of the day, we'll never be there. But part of the thing is, it's not really, and it's a cliche thing, but it's very true. It's not really the destination; it's the journey, and trying to just acquire a new skill set and go for it. And I think with that, that whether a person is successful or not, to me, that just invokes the spirit of being really passionate about something. And I feel like these movies just are primetime examples of that. So yeah, I can't recommend this movie enough. This is one of the this transfer Severin. This is a Severin release. It came out. It came out pretty recently, probably a year or two ago. But this is a beautiful package. I love the slipcase. There's some good special features on here. Some interviews with the cast. And I got this. I bought this movie last year. This is the original artwork. I remember as a kid on seeing this like on the shelves, and I remember renting this as a kid on when it was VHS only. And man, what an amazing thing! But again, Severin is just amazing. There's some really good, great special features on here. This is a badass movie. I can't recommend it enough. I've talked about this movie before. I know I did a show on this a while back, but it's such a great movie, and this is like my third or fourth time watching it since I bought it. So amazing film. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.